It's 8 a.m. here on Local 4 Plus. Good Friday morning. We got plenty to get to on this Friday edition of Local 4 Live, including gas prices, which, you guessed it, continue to tick up overnight. But we might be seeing some relief, or there could be more pain on the way. We're also looking into the ongoing fight for oil amid the war in Iran. Plus, a local police department is running out of patience after several recent swatting calls. We'll tell you the message that they have about the consequences of swatting coming up. And in a couple of hours, we're finally shoving winter out of here and saying hello to spring. The vernal equinox is going to bring in the new season. And Ashley Barrissey is going to be talking about warmer temperatures coming up for your weekend. The Friday edition of Local 4 Live starts right now.
From downtown Detroit, Local 4 Live starts right now.
Good Friday morning. It is the 20th day of March 2026. Welcome to Local 4 Live. I'm Jay Scott Smith, and the big story in the big show this morning is, of course, those gas prices and what you're paying at the pump. Here's a live look at what's happening out in the Middle East. The war in Iran has rapidly become a war on the world's energy supply. And this week, Iran has attacked oil facilities in Saudi Arabia. And as they burned, they also hit more oil and gas sites in Qatar, the UAE, and in Kuwait. Iran is calling it an escalation after Israel attacked the South Pars natural gas refinery in Iran earlier this week. That entire field holds the largest natural gas reserves in the world. Now, earlier this week, the Department of Energy said that they would be releasing 172 million barrels from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. The first batch of that crude oil is expected to enter the market pretty much any time, and it might lower gas prices here in the U.S. Now, let's take a look at how much gas is actually right now, or you're paying for gas right now. In Michigan, the average gas price, $3.93 per gallon. The good news, that's only up 1 cent from yesterday. It's up 34 cents from a week ago and up 105 from 1 month ago. Let's take a look at the cheapest gas prices around the area. We'll go by the county, and that's according to Gas Buddy. First, in Macomb County, the cheapest price you'll find are in East Point, at the Sheets as well as at the Speedway. Both of those are $3.29 a gallon. In Oakland County, it's a Marathon station on John R. and Hazel Park. That's $3.44 a gallon, followed by the Sam's Club in Madison Heights and the Marathon in Kego Harbor. Both of them are at $3.49. Let's head down to Wayne County, where the S&K station on Davison is at $3.27, followed by the Bidune fuel stop in Allen Park. That's at $3.28. And the Amex duty-free station is $2.99 a gallon. However, if you're going to go there, you got to remember that one is at the foot of the Ambassador Bridge, and the only way out of that station is to cross on over into Canada. Now, meanwhile, the Detroit police are asking for any victims to come forward who might have been targeted by a former Detroit police sergeant. Wayne County prosecutor Kim Worthy calls 68-year-old Benjamin Wagner a serial rapist. Wagner was with DPD from 1998 to 2017, and he faces 15 charges and is accused of kidnapping and sexually assaulting at least 5 girls and young women between the ages of 15 and 23 from 1993 to 2003. Wagner's expected in court next week, and police believe there may be more victims out there. Anyone with information is asked to contact the Detroit Police Department. Meanwhile, religious leaders and police are calling for unity and condemning last Thursday's attack on Temple Israel in West Bloomfield. Sheriff Mike Bouchard says anti-Semitism is on the rise, leading to violence over the last few years. The FBI is leading the investigation and considers this a targeted attack to violence. Now, faith leaders say that all houses of worship do deserve protection.
We stand here today with the Oakland County Sheriff's Office because the fight cannot be fought by the Jewish community alone. It is not only a Jewish problem.
Whether it's in a synagogue or a mosque under threat, we show up for each other. Solidarity is our greatest weapon.
Now, Sheriff Bouchard says that his office will keep providing security and assistance to places of worship in Oakland County. Meanwhile, in Warren, police are running out of patience after a spike in swatting calls. Now, those calls are when somebody targets somebody's home or business, and that's happened a lot in the past couple of weeks. 6 times to be exact, as someone has called 911, falsely claiming a violent crime was being committed that requires a heavy police presence. And the calls tend to come from young people who may not realize the consequences, but what many people don't know is that each swatting call can cost the police department thousands of dollars, and it puts people's lives in danger. So joining us to talk about this morning is Warren Police Lieutenant John Gajewski, the department's public information officer. John, thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
So what has been going on with these swatting calls? What have you guys been seeing?
Yeah, so what we've been seeing is in the past few weeks, we've had an influx of these swatting calls, calls reporting very serious crimes from active shooters to homicides to shootings, targeting various businesses and residences. And we show up. Of course, we have to take the threats as legitimate, the calls as legitimate, especially in today's times, certainly in light of the Temple Israel. We respond and we find out that there's nothing going on. The calls are completely false.
So when those kind of calls come in, you guys have to fully mobilize, as you noted, because you don't know what you're getting into. Once officers arrive and there's nothing there, what's the procedure? What's the protocol there?
So what we tell residents, obviously, is when we respond and make sure, everybody's safe and there's nothing going on, the investigation is only beginning. Every one of these calls is assigned to a detective who diligently follows up on any available leads. We partner with our state and federal partners where we can, because these calls are disruptive. They're disruptive to the residents' peace, they're disruptive to businesses, and they put a huge strain on our resources. They tie up hours of police, fire, dispatch, calls for service, and obviously that's disruptive to the entire community. So anybody who's doing this needs to realize it is disruptive, and more importantly, it's a crime. It's certainly a felony, and we will prosecute you.
Now, when it comes to these calls coming in, is there a way to root out who's making the call? I know people will call in dispatchers. Of course, we have caller ID, all these different things. Is there a way to figure out who is getting these calls off to police, and is there a way to stop it?
There is. Our detectives are pretty good. We have a lot of technological resources and stuff that weren't in play certainly a couple of years ago. So certainly we pursue all available leads, and we use different technology platforms to try to isolate who's actually making the call to hold them responsible. Some of these investigations take time. Certain records do take time to get in our hands, but rest assured that we don't just take these calls lightly. We don't just say, oh, well, have a good day. We want to hold people who do this accountable because it is disruptive. It puts lives in danger for both the community and first responders.
Yeah, and that's another point I was going to bring up is that along with just not only the time, the man hours, the different resources that go into answering these calls, this is very dangerous on both ends. And we've seen this happen before where some of these swatting calls in different parts of the country can lead to some really bad outcomes for either the people in the homes or for the officers that are out there responding.
Absolutely, right. That potential exists. Anytime you have officers responding to what we perceive or believe and treat as legitimate to be, certainly a violent crime in progress, that's a volatile situation. That's a volatile environment to put police and citizens in, right? Especially in today's times. Again, it is dangerous. You have tons of public safety resources responding to these calls, driving to these calls, and it just ties up so much of our time. It's certainly preventable, and we need to make it stop.
So if somebody, say, calls in and say if someone knows someone is calling in a swatting call, like they think this is just funny or they're trying to troll somebody that they met online, what can the public do if they find out that someone is out here sending out swatting calls?
Sure. Certainly, obviously, if somebody knows something about a swatting call, one that's taking place or one that has occurred, certainly in the city of Warren, we encourage those people to call our detective bureau to follow up. That information can prove instrumental in an investigation or criminal prosecution. I think the other piece of this that we want to get out there is, we understand it's just disruptive to the citizenry, but if we show up at your house under the belief that there's a swatting call, cooperation goes a long way, right? Our goal is to make sure everybody's safe, to make sure that the emergency being reported isn't going on, and anything we can do to expedite that, right? Getting people to answer the phone when dispatch calls, coming out, following officers' commands. The quicker we get to the truth, the quicker we can get out of your hair, and we can also get our resources back in play for those who might genuinely be in need of emergency services.
That's Lieutenant John Gajewski from the Warren Police Department, their public information officer. John, thank you for joining us this morning on Local 4 Live.
Thank you.
It's kind of interesting. He mentions is keeping people out of our hair. But for but for more on this, let's bring in our crime and safety expert, Darnell Blackburn. And Darnell, you were definitely agreeing with a lot what John was saying there. When it comes to things like swatting calls, if you're in your house and all of a sudden the police just show up out of nowhere and you know you've done nothing wrong, how do you respond?
Let's talk. I'm so glad you brought it up, Jay. So here's the thing that I promote often as a former law enforcement officer. Comply now, complain later. In situations like this, where there's a heavy police presence that's coming to your home, and you know you haven't done anything, don't get out and start, I didn't do nothing. Comply. Because they don't know who you are. I mean, you may not know what's going on, and the reality is that we don't want anybody hurt. A police officer, a citizen, somebody who's walking down the street. So it is so critical and crucial to, if the police come and they give you a command or they tell you to do something, for you to do it. And it could happen with swatting. I mean, we know that I think that there's kind of two victims. There's the police department who kind of is a victim because they're allocating resources. Then you got whomever is the person that's the agency or the address or whatever. And so I can't stress enough, just do what the police say so that everybody will remain safe.
And they can actually figure out what's really going on, because these swatting calls involve people saying there's a domestic violence incident, there's a mass shooting, there's some sort of crime happening and you need to get there right now. And the police show up, you're sitting there watching TV or making dinner or playing a video game, and then all of a sudden here comes a SWAT team or a heavy police presence. And we've seen this turn deadly around the country before. This is not just you got to be careful. Like, no, there are people who've actually lost their lives in swatting incidents.
Yeah, and with this being said, I mean, the reality is that this doesn't just go for a swatting incident. I mean, we're talking about swatting, but just in any situation, just comply so that everybody can remain safe. And that is just such a big deal, especially for something. Nobody wants to be blamed for something they didn't do.
Absolutely.
And in any situation. And so the police showing up and we know you didn't do anything, you're like, I'm innocent. Police are looking for moves. They're looking for these sudden moves. They're looking for these sudden things. And you may not know. So just for viewers watching, just in general, just comply and then be around so you can complain if there's something inappropriate happening from the police doing something to you, or from you being a victim of swatting, so that everybody can get to the bottom of it and be safe.
It's a lot of what we heard growing up about when police pull you over. Just do what you can to make sure you get back home. Basically.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. That is Darnell Blackburn, our crime and safety expert. Thank you for joining us this morning. Now, coming up, Hispanic Americans and union advocates are grappling with the sexual assault allegations against the late civil rights icon Cesar Chavez. Coming up, we'll look at how cities across the country, including here in the metro area, are planning to change their planned celebrations of Chavez that were set for his birthday at the end of the month. That's ahead when Local 4 Live returns. And welcome back to Local 4 Live on this Friday morning. Now, Wednesday's shocking allegations and revelations about legendary labor activist Cesar Chavez have led to a reckoning across the country. Cities, states, and universities have already begun removing his name from monuments, streets, and celebrations that were planned for his birthday at the end of the month. And I took a look at some of the impact that's happening across the country.
The reaction to the stunning revelations about Cesar Chavez have been swift. Chavez, the iconic labor leader who, along with Dolores Huerta, created the United Farm Workers Union, was accused of being a serial sexual predator in an extensive expose in Wednesday's New York Times. Dr. Reina Esquivel King is a history professor at Wayne State Center for Latino Studies.
Dolores Huerta could have been the face of this movement had it not been for the misogyny within the farm workers movement itself.
Cities across the country have begun the process of canceling planned Chavez celebrations.
I can't imagine the trauma of seeing his name and seeing him celebrated when knowing the horrible things that he did to them.
Michigan State University changed the planned Chavez celebration to the Farm Worker Appreciation Commemorative Celebration, MSU saying in a statement that the name change, quote, reflects the university's gratitude for farm workers and better aligns with the spirit of appreciation and recognition around which the event is organized.
Now, unlike the cities out west, Detroit does not have a dedicated street named after Cesar Chavez. However, here in Southwest Detroit, as you can see, we do have the Cesar Chavez Academy High School. However, one other building here in the city, at Wayne State University to be exact, has a treasure trove of Cesar Chavez memorabilia and files.
One of the letters written by one of Chavez's teenage victims, dated January 18, 1974, was found in the collection at the Ruther Library.
Maybe getting this truth out, even though it's uncomfortable, it's a way to say, okay, it's out there. Let's rethink and let's give these victims some space.
Now, I did end up hearing back from Georgia Rogers, who's the CEO of the Leona Group, which runs the Cesar Chavez Academy. They're actually chartered through Saginaw Valley State University. Now, she says that they are taking these allegations seriously, but they also say that they are not defined by the name on the school, but by the values that they live by each day. Now, we're getting a lot closer to the official start of spring, about 2.5 hours away to be exact. Trust me, I can't wait to get winter out of here. It can't be gone fast enough. And Ashley Barrissey is going to have your weekend forecast, which will even feature some spring-like temperatures. Plus, a fair fight is happening as Mackinac Island is battling with their ferry company over the price tourists are going to have to pay to get on the island. It doesn't look like spring up there right now, but trust me, spring is about to get started. We'll have that story coming up when Local 4 Live returns. And welcome back to Local 4 Live. And here is a live look at Mackinac Island. And oh boy, look at all that snow out there. Now there is a fight over fares happening up there. The Mackinac Island City Council voted to reject higher ferry ticket rates and fees by Hoffman Marine. That's the company that owns both Shepler's Mackinac Island Ferry and the Arnold Transit Company. Instead, the council's demanding financial records within 20 days so the island can set new fare rates. And if Hoffman doesn't comply, the city says they will start daily fines under the ferry's ordinance, and they're ready to put temporary rates in place for the season. Now, what you're looking at right there is a very distinct, very wintry picture. It looks just like a Christmas card up there right now. But today is officially the first day of spring. In fact, we're about to actually hit the exact equinox in just a couple of hours. And we're welcoming in now forewarned meteorologist Ashley Barrissey. Ashley, we saw the temperatures starkly go up yesterday. It turned into a really nice day and felt like spring. And it becomes official now, I guess, in a couple of hours.
Right, and we'll be even warmer today, believe it or not. So, yeah.
That's fantastic.
It will be fantastic because we take similar conditions into the weekend. So here we are with your out-the-door forecast on the first day of spring, which will officially be in the season in just over 2 hours. So above average weekend ahead. Starts with today and both Sunday being in the 60s. We'll take a little dip tomorrow, but shower and maybe a embedded thunderstorm chance come Sunday, and that'll bring really cooler conditions to at least start the work week, but not for long. This is just a brief cool down, but it's kind of like that teeter-totter or the roller coaster that we've been stuck in all month. You can see quite a colorful map or calendar that we have here, and it gives us the 30s that we started off the month in, almost 2-week stretch of above average, and then we've kind of been ping-ponging back and forth over the last week. So this weekend, we can rejoice in that we will be above average, and check out these temperatures. I mean, 52 already in Howell and down in Monroe, and we have a lot of 40s on the map. A little cooler up to the northeast where we're in the 30s, and that's where we also have the better chance of seeing a passing shower or two throughout the morning today. But overall, it is an upward swing from 24 hours ago. In fact, a 20-degree upward swing off towards Howell and even warmer than that in Jackson. So satellite and radar shows that there is a low pressure system that's creating enough instability for areas pretty much along and north of I-69 to get some of the rain. But that warm front that the low pressure system's kind of riding along, that's off to our east. We're now in that warmer sector across southeast Michigan of that front. There will be a cold front kind of chasing behind it, and that will bring the cooler conditions come tomorrow. So here we look at Exact Track 4D, kind of mapping this out for you as I zoom closer to the thumb region. And just along I-69 north is where there's the precipitation. But Bad Axe getting a little bit of a rain-snow mix. And it's just that isolated pocket. And once we get above that freezing mark there, you'll see all that change over. So I won't rule out a stray shower chance for our northern communities through the morning. But then we will have a couple little breaks in the clouds this afternoon, and we'll be drier across the area for the second half of the day with temperatures topping out in the 60s. Tonight, 36 under mostly cloudy skies. Winds begin to shift out of the north in the wake of that cold front. But for today, we do have those above average temperatures across much of the country. In fact, southwestern portions of the U.S. looking at record breaking temperatures once again. So that cold front sweeps through today, doesn't really bring us the colder air till tomorrow. Then we have the high pressure building in tomorrow, which keeps everything stable. So even though we're a little cooler tomorrow, I think the fact that we're drier makes that the pick day of the weekend. And then another stronger cold front arrives on Sunday. Could trigger a few light showers Sunday morning, but it looks like into the afternoon is where we have a better chance for some rain and maybe an embedded non-severe storm. Come Monday, another dose of high pressure. That's our friend, because that could bring us some sunshine, even though we're colder. And then we rebound after that. So your 7-day forecast, well, we have 40s, 50s, 60s all over the place. And even those overnight lows, 20s and 30s. And so I think this is the time of year where when we get in the 60s for a few days, you start to really think spring, because we're in spring, and maybe, ooh, when can I start doing some planting? Far too soon for that. Overnight lows are still, dropping below freezing, but definitely a far cry from some of those sub-zero wind chills that we've had and that long stretch of a brutal winter.
It's like we made it through that to start to get to days like this.
I know. We've been waiting so long for this. It's so nice.
And in a couple of hours, we officially get to say goodbye to winter, even though it's still going to linger around just a little bit.
And definitely linger up north.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, that picture from Mackinac Island where it looks like a Christmas card up there right now. That's beautiful. Don't need any more of that, though. Thank you so much, Ashley. Now, coming up after the break, we're going to have a Local 4 update. And at the bottom of the hour, there's a warning from health officials with what they want you to know before you head out to spring break. And speaking of heading out, we're going to check in at Metro Airport as travelers try to get out of town, but the TSA shortages are making that just a little bit tricky. That's all coming up at the bottom of the hour right here on Local 4 Live. Good Friday morning. I'm Jay Scott Smith with a Local 4 update. Here's what's happening right now before you take off on that spring break trip. The Washtenaw County health officials are warning of a measles outbreak, urging people to get vaccinated. Now, 3 cases are connected to travel from Florida earlier this month. The disease, which was once thought to be eradicated by vaccines, is spreading with more than 1,300 cases reported across the country this year. Doctors say 2 doses of the MMR vaccine provide 97% protection against this highly contagious virus. Now, over on Local 4 Plus, another 90 minutes of Local 4 Live is coming up, and TSA staffing issues are hitting spring break travel hard. We'll check in to let you know what's happening at Metro Airport. Plus, March Madness is underway, and for some men, it's the perfect time for a vasectomy. Doctors will explain that there's just more time to recover. Plus, spring is almost here, literally. We'll tell you about the vernal equinox and what equal day and night really means. Ashley Barrissey will have a look at the Friday forecast coming up right here on Local 4.
From downtown Detroit, Local 4 Live starts right now.
8:30 here on Local 4 Plus. Welcome to this Friday morning edition of Local 4 Live. I'm Jay Scott Smith, and in about 2 hours, we're officially going to just shove winter right on up out of here as spring arrives with the vernal equinox. But what exactly is the vernal equinox? Well, the word equinox comes from the Latin word equis, meaning equal, and nox, meaning night. Therefore, an equinox means equal night, meaning both night and day are the same length. But where did that start? Well, for that, we're going to hop into the history books a little bit. Let's get a live look at Athens, Greece, which is where this story begins. We're going to go all the way back. You've got to think of olive trees and sandals, star charts. All this goes back to around 127 BC as a Greek astronomer named Hipparchus was mapping the sky, writing a star catalog, and using his own version of mathematics, trigonometry. My very good friend from 11th grade. Now, he did 3 simple things: observe, compare notes with earlier records, and do the math. So, when he compared the data, he noticed the points of the solstice and the equinox were slowly shifting against the backdrop of the stars. This movement was called precession. Now think of a top that wobbles as it spins. But over the centuries, the top is Earth, and it's wobbling between the pull of the sun and the moon. And from there, he built models for the sun and moon, which led him to pin the length of the year down to within 6.5 minutes, which is incredible considering he doesn't have the technology that we've got here today. So what happens today, and why is the vernal equinox always slightly different times and days every year? See, I can't answer that question because I'm not smart enough for that, but someone who can is forewarned meteorologist Ashley Barresi. So Ashley, I hope I did a decent enough job kind of explaining what...
I think I learned a few things there. You gave me a history lesson. Yeah, and of course, you know, as the year goes around with the 365 days, there's, you know, a little fluctuation with a couple minutes every year, seconds, and that's why everything fluctuates like that. But yeah, I mean, I usually give science lessons. That was excellent, absolutely excellent. So yeah, we'll get to the vernal equinox because that is what we're celebrating today at 10:46 a.m. And so that's where we do have nearly equal amounts of daylight and darkness. So that would mean that sunset tonight is just a little bit after 7:30, where our sunrise was a little after 7:30. But here we are, and that's for all latitudes. It's not just here in Metro Detroit. And so we will have that for both of the equinox. But then you have the solstices as far as the summer and winter solstice. And so that's where I want to point out on this kind of daylight chart. As you get closer to that summer solstice in June, that's where we have the longest daylight time. And then, of course, the winter solstice is the shortest day of the year. Not when it comes to the length. I don't want anyone to correct me on that. I know that there are 24 hours in a day, but it has to do with the daylight. And so here we are, March 20th. And even though we have that equal amounts of daylight and darkness, you can see there's just so much ahead of us from now until just a couple months from now, or a few months from now, where we will have even more daylight to be contending with.
It gets to that point of the year where you start looking forward to things, where the days start to get longer, you get more of that sunlight. Even in the last couple of weeks, I've gotten crossed up where I've looked up and I've said, it's 7 o'clock and it's still sunny out here.
I know. Yeah, you have to do a double take on the clock for sure, especially after springing forward, and then you had that shift as well. But yeah, so very interesting on this vernal equinox. I hope everybody celebrates with the warm weather that we're going to serve up with it.
We're certainly looking forward to that. Ashley, thank you so much. She'll be back with more of the forecast a little bit later on in this half hour as well. Now let's turn over to those long security lines at the airport across the country, and they just keep getting longer and longer. And now we're learning about an attack on a TSA officer who are working, by the way, without pay. This attack happened at Dallas's Love Field Airport. Here's NBC News' Tom Costello.
Just as the next wave of spring break travelers hits the nation's airports, key TSA checkpoints are in gridlock and meltdown. Hours-long lines at Philly with half the terminal checkpoints closed. Nationwide, the TSA says roughly 10% of its officers are calling out every day, working second jobs to make ends meet. 38% call out in Atlanta with 90-minute TSA lines.
It's so bad, and this is the long line.
38% call out in Houston, too, with 2-hour delays. Adding to the stress, assaults on TSA officers. In Dallas, a 33-year-old man arrested for punching 2 TSOs and a police officer, facing up to 20 years in prison. The U.S. attorney warning violent conduct perpetrated against TSA and law enforcement officers will never be tolerated. Meanwhile, no progress in bipartisan talks on Capitol Hill to end the partial shutdown.
Do you see me? Do you see that I'm showing up every day?
TSA officer Heaven Jones has 3 children to feed.
A lot of stress on my family, deciding whether to pay for groceries, gas, all different types of bills.
At airports nationwide, airlines and food banks are feeding TSA staffers. The Trump administration warns if the shutdown and TSA call-outs continue,
you're going to see small airports, I believe, shut down. You're going to see extensive lines, and air travel is going to almost come to a grid halt, stop.
Meanwhile, the TSA union president is blasting members of Congress for leaving town without reaching a funding agreement, walking through a TSA checkpoint where officers are currently working without pay. Let's head over to Detroit Metro Airport, where thankfully Metro has been largely unscathed when it comes to a lot of the security wait times compared to the other major airports across the country. Currently, there is a 7-minute wait at the Evans terminal and just a 3-minute wait at the McNamara terminal. And right now, there have been 29 delays and only 5 cancellations. And it's the time of year where no one really pays attention at work. Let's be honest, a lot of you weren't paying attention at work yesterday because you're busy watching 4 different college basketball games at the same time. Yes, it is indeed March Madness. We'll have more on that coming up later on too. But coming up after the break, we're going to take a look at how Michigan State and Michigan fared in round 1. And we're going to hear from Dr. Frank McGeorge about a very personal medical procedure that is seeing a spike during this time of year. Gentlemen, you want to grab a bag of peas for this one. Local 4 Live will be back after the break. And you are looking live at Buffalo, New York, where the Spartans and Wolverines are going to be there for the entire weekend because they both picked up very convincing wins yesterday to start the NCAA tournament. Now, in the late game, Michigan is moving on after holding down Howard University 101-80. Now, this game is actually closer than that score indicates, as the Bison made their 10 three-pointers in the first half. They trailed only by 4 at halftime. It was in the second half, however, that Morez Johnson took over and helped break it open, scoring 17 of his 21 points in the game's final 20 minutes. Michigan pulls away for an easy win.
We're going to, enjoy this for a little bit. Then tomorrow we're going to have to, set a real high standard for us and know that every game isn't going to be like this, so we got to bring our A game.
We've been a part of these type of environments and games before. The Big Ten gives you those environments almost every single night. So being poised in the moment, not letting the moment get bigger than ourselves and bigger than the team, and staying connected throughout it all.
Now, the Wolverines will advance to the second round, the round of 32, if you will, to play ninth-seeded St. Louis tomorrow afternoon at 12:10 p.m. St. Louis hammered the University of Georgia yesterday, 102-77, to advance to round 2. Meanwhile, in the early game, the Michigan State Spartans started their 28th consecutive tournament run against North Dakota State, and the Spartans dominated this one nearly wire to wire. Carson Cooper tied his season high, scoring 20 points, and the Spartans made 59% of their shots from the field. It's their second best shooting game of the season. They led by 20 at halftime, went up by nearly 30 in the second half, and cruised to a 25-point win.
Everybody had their moments, like Coop having his moment, Fears, like everybody, Cam. It was just an incredible team effort today.
We out-rebounded by 12, I think, and, Coach pulled a lot of stats in the last 5 games. We've been out-rebounding guys by like 5 in the last 5. So for us to kind of get back to that and guard a lot better than we have recently, that's a statement.
Now, Jeremy Fears ended up with 7 points and 11 assists in the game. And next up for the Spartans in the second round, 6-seeded Louisville. That game will tip off tomorrow at 2:45 in Buffalo. The Cardinals beat South Florida 83-79 to advance on Thursday afternoon. And you may have heard this before, but during March Madness, doctors see a spike in one particular medical procedure: vasectomies. And a lot of people say that men schedule these surgeries so they can relax on the couch and watch basketball. Got to do what you got to do. But doctors also say that there's actually more at play to this. And our Dr. Frank McGeorge has more on why vasectomies increase during this time of year.
Thanks. I'm joined by Dr. Amarnath Rambatla. He is a urologist at Henry Ford Health at the Vaticuti Urology Institute. Thank you so much for talking to me today.
Thanks, Frank, for having me.
So, all right. So, we're talking about March Madness and vasectomies. And it's kind of a funny thing to me when I heard about this initially, because in the ER, we always hear like, oh, it's busier at a full moon. So is it really busier from a urologist standpoint? Do you get more vasectomies during March Madness?
Yeah, so it's interesting. We see two seasonal uptakes in vasectomy consults and vasectomy requests. And usually we see this around March Madness, because the joke is that men will come in, get their vasectomy, and then they'll be excused by their wives to go and lay on the couch and not do anything, and so they can turn on basketball and watch uninterrupted for the next few days. The other seasonal spike that we see is in November and December, and largely this is because most people have met their insurance deductibles by then, and they want to get in before the year is over to have their procedure done.
Right. It's a good opportunity to get almost a free vasectomy or a fully covered vasectomy on insurance.
That's correct. Yeah. So
interesting. So what is the evaluation like for a vasectomy? I mean, what's the consult?
Yeah, so it's it's a permanent form of sterilization. They can be reversed, but we usually counsel people that this is permanent. And so we want to make sure that men are ready for this and they're sure that they and their partners do not want to have any more children. And we want to also make sure there hasn't been any anatomical factors that may complicate this. So prior surgeries or infections in the area can sometimes make vasectomy a little bit more difficult. So it's important to discuss all that. And then we want to just make sure they're healthy enough to undergo a office procedure, and essentially make sure that they're mentally ready for this next step.
And that's another important point you brought up. You call it an office procedure. So this is not, this is not major surgery. We're not taking out your heart or your liver or anything like that. I mean, talk about how, I guess, simple it is in a way.
Yeah. So I would say the vast majority are pretty straightforward, done in the office setting under just local anesthesia. In fact, most of my patients will just drive themselves home after the procedure. We start off the procedure by anesthetizing the area with just some local anesthesia. And after that, most men aren't feeling much of anything. Sometimes they'll feel a little bit of pressure, but certainly no pain. And essentially, we make a small opening in the skin, just a few millimeters wide, and we're able to access the vas deferens tube, which is the tube that transports sperm from the testicle up to near the prostate area. And once we're able to access that, we basically will clip and cut the vas deferens and then put everything back in, close up the skin. And the same thing is done on the other side. Roughly will take about 15 to 20 minutes or so. So it's pretty straightforward. And like I said, most men can drive themselves home afterwards.
Now, the joke being that they're recovering on the couch during March Madness. What is the recovery like for an average vasectomy?
So usually we'll instruct men to take it easy for a couple of days. So light activity for the first few days to a week or so. Lots of ice for the first 1 to 2 days. And most men do great with just pain control with ibuprofen and Tylenol as needed.
Excellent. Now there is, when a vasectomy is done, of course, the idea is to eliminate the transmission of sperm or the ability of sperm to get from the testicle out. And so how do you verify that?
So usually after about 3 months, we'll check what's called a post-vasectomy semen analysis. And the goal is to see either no sperm or what we call rare non-motile sperm, which is less than 100,000 sperm that are not moving around.
Excellent. So it's a very well tolerated, very standard, reasonably quick procedure, I think it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very straightforward. And, the alternative for women is a lot more invasive with the tubal ligation. So.
Right. And that sort of brings up an interesting point. We've had a lot of conversation in the United States about reproductive responsibility, I suppose would be the way to say it. What have you seen in terms of men's approach to reproductive responsibility in a relationship?
Yeah, it's interesting. So we've seen a shift sort of in paradigm over the last 10 to 20 years where men are becoming more empowered about their fertility and their reproductive health. And, this is a decision that, usually couples make together, right? And, and men are 50% partners in this. And so I think a lot of men are seeing this, and they're becoming more empowered. And, like we talked about, it's a lot simpler of a procedure for men to undergo a vasectomy than the alternative for women. And, there's a lot more risks involved in a tubal ligation. It has to be done under general anesthesia. And so I think we're seeing men realize this, and they're taking control.
Interesting. And then finally, I guess, so it is possible to reverse a vasectomy, although it's not a guarantee. What about storing sperm prior to a vasectomy? How often is that done?
Yeah, so that's also something we discuss in our vasectomy evaluation. There is a possibility to cryopreserve sperm in case one changes their mind. And there's, it's probably not done that often, but it is something that we do discuss at the time of the vasectomy consult.
Excellent. Anything we didn't bring up that you want to mention here?
So the other possibility for fertility after a vasectomy, so we talked about vasectomy reversal, but we can also extract, the testicles continue to make sperm, so we can actually extract sperm from either the testicles or the epididymis, and this can be used in conjunction with in vitro fertilization for fertility after a vasectomy. Again, men should go in with the mindset that this is a permanent form of contraception, but there are options if one should change their mind or life circumstances change.
That's really interesting. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Amarnath Rambatla, Henry Ford Health Vadakuti Urology Institute, for joining me this morning and explaining a little bit about March Madness and vasectomies.
Thanks, Frank.
Now, coming up on Local 4 Live, the games the kids play in their bedrooms might just be their next career move. We're going to head out to Huntington Place for an event that's all about getting kids in Detroit involved in STEM, doing so with a little help from the Detroit Pistons. That's ahead when Local 4 Live returns on this Friday morning. It's 8:50 here on Local 4, and it was an absolutely delightful day on Thursday. We got a bit of a chilly start, but by the time we stepped outside, it felt like spring, thankfully, Ashley.
Oh, I know, and it's going to continue to feel like spring through the weekend. So beautiful weekend we have on tap. Of course, we dodge a couple spring-like showers, not a washout by any means, as we're getting you out the door on what I like to call a finally Friday and first day of spring, above average weekend ahead. So shower and storm chances a little more likely come Sunday. That comes with a stronger cold front, though I won't rule out a stray shower today. And then cooler temperatures to start the next work week. But before you groan, just think, oh, well, we're rebounding. By the end of the week, we'll be back in the 60s. So your high temperatures have been all over the board for the month of March. We started off below average, had a nice stretch above average, and then it's been a little fickle going back and forth this week. But if you recall, earlier this week, we had some sub-zero wind chill readings we were waking up to, and now we're talking 60s. So here we are. Hello, spring. Temperatures at this hour are in the 40s and 50s, and so we are well into the 50s down in Monroe with some sunshine, 55 degrees. Now more cloud cover the farther north you work, and that's because you get closer to where the rain is. And of course, with the clouds, it's a little cooler. So we still have some 30s on the map. I mean, a 20-degree temperature differential nearly from Sandusky down into Monroe. But a lot of us across the metro area in the mid-40s right now. So that temperature change is another upward swing that's noticeable. I mean, when we're talking anywhere from 10 to 20 degrees warmer, you notice that difference as you step outside. And so as we look at satellite and radar, we have some of that rain that's starting to push across portions of southeast Michigan. It's associated with that low. Now, the warm front that's off to our east, we're still in the wake of that. I mean, that wedge of air behind it is warmer, but then we have that cold front that'll push through, and that's going to be what will control our slightly cooler temperatures come tomorrow. That rain, though, stretching maybe now just a little bit farther south of I-69, but I want to point out, if you were with us just about a half hour ago, I showed you Bad Axe that had some snow and that rain-snow mix. Now it's oh so little, that little mixture that we have up there with pink on radar, mostly just rain showers coming down. So hourly forecast for today, I wouldn't even, put it past us to see a little sunshine as the afternoon works its way in. 63 degrees for the high temperature, so well above the upper 40s that would be seasonal this time of year. Tonight, 36, mostly cloudy skies, but notice that the wind shift coming out of the north, and so that does change our pattern come tomorrow. But for today, we're in good company. We have that ridge in the jet stream putting most of the U.S. above average, that dome of high pressure down to the southwest, continuously bringing record-breaking heat to that portion of the country, but it is cooler than average down into Florida with the trough of the jet stream. So clouds and radar, here we go. We spend the afternoon drier than what some areas are starting off the day. High pressure is our friend tomorrow, keeping things stable, dry, and then that second cold front arrives Sunday. This model picking it up through the morning. Some have hinted a little bit later onset, so I think we could see a little light rain, possibly as early as the morning, but certainly in the afternoon, and I won't rule out the embedded thunderstorm as the warmth clashes with that cold air. But then we have high pressure again Monday, so even though we're colder, it's going to be a little more sunny. So we have 40s, 50s, 60s in the 7-day forecast, meaning we do dip Monday, but then we're right back around 50 the middle of next week. We'll be possibly in the low 60s on Thursday with a chance for a shower, and those overnight lows kind of hovering on either side of 30, but really Saturday night going into Sunday, that's not bad, 40 for the overnight low. That's closer to what average highs are.
That's not bad at all. I mean, all things considered, again, we both remember those mornings where there were minuses next to numbers.
Oh, I know.
When it came to low temperatures, so I'm not going to complain at all about 40-degree weather waking up that early in the morning.
Yeah, it was such a long stretch this winter. I think it's going to take us some time to get over what we experienced.
It's a little bit of the weather PTSD that still lingers after all of this. Thank you so much, Ashley. Now, let's take a live look at Huntington Place in downtown Detroit, and that's where kids were getting hands-on with technology. Now, it's all part of the STEAM Slam, and the goal is to close the digital divide. Now, they might not know what their future job is just yet, but Code 313 is helping them try things with workshops, as well as experiments. Our Maya Kuznicki takes you inside the event filled with science, technology, engineering, arts, and math.
We just want to spark the curiosity with the kids today, to be able to show them what's possible and what the future workforce looks like.
Seeing the smiles on all of their faces is what keeps Executive Director of Code 313, Bartell Welch, going.
I'm tired. I've been here, 3 days setting up, but none of that matters to me at this moment.
This is the nonprofit's 7th year, giving kids a glimpse at the world of science, technology, engineering, arts, and math.
We have them, flying drones. We have them building and doing things with robots. We have them messing with virtual reality, doing some engineering projects.
The games kids play in their bedrooms might just be their next career move.
We believe that if you can't see it, you can't be it.
STEAM Slam is showing them that anything is possible.
Oh!
Hundreds of kids took part from schools all across Metro Detroit.
They wake up to a whole new vision of what they can be and that what they will be with programs like this in Detroit.
Now, yesterday wasn't the only day for fun, by the way. The Steam Slam is also happening today, but it'll switch from elementary and middle school kids to high schoolers as they're going to be getting a look at technology. Now, another hour of Local 4 Live is coming up, and coming up in that 9 o'clock hour, we're going to be getting a new look into that fiery crash in Canton Township that happened on Wednesday. Plus, we're going to show you how first responders reacted to that wrong-way crash that caused a fuel spill to ignite a fire. And there's no final rose for the new Bachelorette, as ABC has pulled the plug before the season premiere, and we'll show you the disturbing video that led to the cancellation. And a woman's photos were hacked, and now she's sharing her story, saying she feels let down by the justice system, even after the men responsible were sentenced to jail. All that is coming up in the 9 o'clock hour of Local 4 Live. We'll see you right back here at the top of the hour. It's 9 a.m. here on Local 4. Welcome to the Friday edition of Local 4 Live. Here's what's in store for this hour. Gas prices are close to $4 a gallon heading into this first weekend of spring as oil refineries continue to be targeted in the war in Iran. We'll show you the cheapest spots to fill up in Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb counties. Plus, with people getting ready to travel for spring break, we're taking you inside Detroit Metro Airport for a look at the TSA situation as the lines grow across the country. And yes, you've made it through winter. In just a little under 2 hours, it'll officially be spring, and the weather this weekend is actually going to feel like it. Ashley Barris is going to tell us about a warm-up and a little bit of rain as another hour of Local 4 Live starts right now.
From downtown Detroit, Local 4 Live starts right now.
And welcome back to Local 4 Live for March 20th, 2026. I'm Jay Scott Smith, and we'll just get right to the big story here on the Big Show. That, of course, is everything that everybody is talking about, those gas prices. So, as we mentioned, they're getting closer to $4 a gallon across the state. The statewide average is currently $3.93 per gallon. Now, the good news, that's only up 1 cent from yesterday. The bad news, it's up 34 cents from a week ago, and it's up $1.05 from this time last month, back on February 20th. And the Trump administration is under growing pressure to bring those gas prices down, but the attacks are mounting on energy facilities across the Middle East. And the president says the war with Iran will be over soon, but the Pentagon is asking Congress for another $200 billion with a B dollars to fund it. NBC News' Alice Barr is in Washington with the growing concern for the impact on the American economy.
Hi there. This is increasingly becoming a war within a war, with both sides attacking energy targets. President Trump told Israel not to strike a critical gas field in Iran again, even as he threatened to hit it even harder if Iran keeps attacking the facilities of U.S. allies in the region. This morning, an oil refinery in Kuwait joining the growing list of energy sites targeted across the Middle East as Iran looks to ramp up the pain for the global economy, while Israel hammered a major Iranian gas field and President Trump threatened worse if Iran keeps attacking Gulf allies like Qatar, all with gas prices already up around 90 cents a gallon since the war began.
I thought that it would go up more than it did. But we're doing this excursion, and when it's completed, we're going to have a much safer world.
With questions mounting about how much longer the war will last, NBC News has learned the U.S. military is accelerating the deployment of thousands more Marines and sailors to the Middle East, according to two people familiar with the decision, who say at least 2,200 Marines are expected to deploy from San Diego in the coming days. President Trump again pressed on plans for boots on the ground.
I'm not putting troops anywhere. If I were, I certainly wouldn't tell you. But I'm not putting troops.
His administration is asking Congress for another $200 billion in wartime funding. House Speaker Mike Johnson backing the president's approach.
I think the mission is all but complete.
Asked why then the military needs billions more.
It's a dangerous time in the world, and we have to adequately fund defense.
Democratic leadership pointing to rising prices, not just gas, but jet fuel and mortgage rates.
Let's focus on bringing down housing costs, bringing down health care costs.
Promising another effort to rein in the president's war powers, a move Republicans have called dangerous and so far blocked. Leaders of the European Union met Thursday to address surging energy prices. Some showed a willingness to help ships pass through that embattled oil route, the Strait of Hormuz, but are calling for hostilities to die down first. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
Now, earlier this week, the Department of Energy said that they would be releasing 172 million barrels from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. And the first batch of that crude oil is expected to enter the market any time now. And it might lower prices here in the U.S. Now, earlier this week, our Will Jones spoke with an expert from Gas Buddy about the rise in prices. And he told us the war in Iran is not the only reason for this spike.
Yesterday's jolt up to nearly $4 at most stations was not 100% the situation in Iran, probably more like 85% of the situation in Iran, and then the changeover to winter gasoline, or excuse me, from winter gasoline to summer gasoline. We're also going to be contending with more headwinds, that is seasonal headwinds. Spring break travels right around the corner. Gasoline demand set to continue rising as temperatures eventually warm up, and refineries that will start doing maintenance, including the Marathon Refinery, Metro Detroit. So all of that usually translates to higher gas prices anyway between winter and spring, and now we're also contending with the impact from the U.S. attacking Iran.
So this is a extremely bad time for a war with a country like Iran, which has a huge amount of oil.
Yeah, it's really all about not only Iran's oil, in fact, probably less about the oil that Iran produces. Much of that oil ends up in China, but a lot more to do with the fact that through attacks, or at least guiding on attacks in the Strait of Hormuz, that they've essentially ground the Strait of Hormuz to a halt. That is, hardly any ships are transiting through. That's now had the act of blocking 20 million barrels of oil every single day. And as this now situation is in its 16th day, that amounts to over 250 million barrels of crude oil that have not been able to get to the market. And it's that huge kink in the hose that is pushing oil up more dramatically. And you had mentioned the U.S. Announcing oil being released from the SPR. The total release, about 172 million barrels. The IEA also coordinating for over 200 million barrels on top of that. But unfortunately, the rate of that oil being released really pales in comparison to the 20 million barrel a day deficit left behind by the blockage of the Strait of Hormuz.
So how high could gas prices go over the next few weeks if this all continues?
Well, certainly we could go up beyond the $4 a gallon mark if it continues. I think that's a foregone conclusion now, with a lot of stations just a fraction of a penny away from that. The seasonal trends will continue pushing prices up as well. The hard thing about this, Will, is knowing exactly what happens next. We've seen a lot of twists and turns in the situation in the Middle East. The vital factor here is once the strait reopens, oil prices will likely start falling, but we probably will deal with elevated prices close to Memorial Day weekend before prices really kind of are back at their pre-war level, and it may take much longer for that to happen. So we could go higher. There's not really any telling how high we will go. As long as the situation continues, we'll continue to see prices advancing.
What would you advise drivers to do, if anything, to save money?
Yeah, well, that's a really difficult one when prices are going up so significantly. Shopping around, you may find lower price stations. Of course, those lower price stations are probably hard to find now that a lot of stations have gone up to $4. But using apps like Gas Buddy, Google Maps, Waze, all of those can help show where those lower prices are. I think the other thing is just being aware of how you drive. Fuel efficiency, how many miles you get per tank, is really dictated by your foot on your accelerator. Just trying to slow down, use your cruise control, leaving a few minutes early can go a long way. But also when you pick a station, finding a station that may offer you a 5 or 10 cent discount if you sign up for a loyalty program, that certainly can go a long way as well.
All right, appreciate your insight. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks, Will.
Now, that was Local 4's Will Jones. And let's take you around the metro area for a look at some of the cheapest gas prices in each county. Let's start in Macomb County, where the cheapest gas you'll find is in East Point at both the Sheetz and the Speedway. Both of those are $3.29. When you head out to Oakland County, it's the Marathon station on John R. and Hazel Park that has the best gas prices. That's $3.44 a gallon, followed by the Sam's Club in Madison Heights and the Marathon in Kego Harbor, which are also $3.49. Now we head down in Wayne County, where the SNK station on Davison is $3.27. Badune Fuel Stop in Allen Park, that is $3.28 a gallon. And the Amex Duty Free station, $2.99 a gallon. However, if you're going to go there, remember it's at the foot of the Ambassador Bridge, and the only way out of that station is to cross that bridge over into Canada. Now, we also have an update on a story we brought you as breaking news last night on Local 4 News at 11, where a man in his 40s has been arrested after a standoff in Bloomfield Township. Now, police went to a home on Quarton Road between Franklin and Inkster to serve a search warrant last night. That's when the man barricaded himself inside the home. It took about an hour of negotiations to get him to leave the house, and we're currently waiting on more information on any charges. And in the city of Detroit, investigators are asking for victims to come forward who might have been targeted by a former Detroit police sergeant. Wayne County prosecutor Kim Worthy called Benjamin Wagner a serial rapist, and he's facing 15 charges for kidnapping and sexually assaulting at least 5 girls and young women between the ages of 15 and 23, and it happened between the years of 1993 and 2003. He would use a gun to order the girls away from others and assault them.
Defendant Wagner's actions do not represent the integrity and the values and the mission of the officers of the Detroit Police Department.
Now, Wagner joined the department back in 1998. He retired in 2017, and prosecutors fear that there are more victims. If you've been a victim, you're asked to contact the Detroit Police Department. And before you head off on spring break, Washtenaw County health officials are warning of a measles outbreak, and they're urging people to get vaccinated. So 3 cases are connected to travel from Florida earlier this month. Now, the disease, which was once thought to be eradicated in the U.S. thanks to vaccines, is spreading nationwide, with more than 1,300 cases reported this year. Doctors say the 2-dose MMR vaccine will provide 97% protection against this highly contagious and dangerous virus. And new video also shows the split-second response from Canton police, who arrived at that fiery crash that injured 10 people on Wednesday. A wrong-way driver hit a semi-truck on Ford Road in Hagerty, which sparked a massive fire, a hazmat spill, and even melted parts of a traffic signal. Local 4's Khalil Maycock has more on the video and is hearing from a couple of the responding officers.
Both of those officers described what happened at this intersection as chaotic, and I want to point your attention to this char spot in the road. That's where one of the officers says a fire was, and if you look, it's close to a gas station. One officer says he wanted to make sure he pulled people as far away from that spot as possible, so if that fire spread, those people were safe. Officers Brett Cheadle and Jacob Malushi with the Canton Police Department are watching the moments they jumped into action to help people injured during Wednesday's crash. This is from their body camera, but for note, it's edited because parts of it can be considered too graphic. But what happens in it is you hear screams and see flames, see officers pulling burning people away from their car, and watch an officer using a fire extinguisher to put out a fire on a burning person. What's it like watching those videos back?
It's something else because you don't really understand the whole scale of it because you're just focused on little itty-bitty parts of it, just trying to help a specific person.
Officers Cheadle and Malushi described this crash as chaotic. In this video, you see thick smoke billowing into the sky. According to police, a wrong-way driver hit a box truck, then the fuel tank of a semi-truck at the intersection of Hagerty and Ford Roads, causing the fire. 6 police officers were treated and released for minor injuries, and so was the driver of the semi-truck. 3 people in the car that hit the semi are in the hospital with serious injuries.
I pulled out one person. Not a lot goes through your head. You kind of just react, jump into it, and do what needs to be done.
Officer Malushi says this is the most hectic scene he's been to in his 6 years here.
The adrenaline does take over in a certain sense, and the training takes over as well.
And when it comes to knowing they were a part of helping to save lives.
I was there to do a job. I'm happy that I did my job and that those men and women involved are able to walk another day and keep moving along.
Neither are boastful. And the interim police chief says he is proud of his officers, and when he described this crash, he couldn't say much, but he did say that it is under investigation, but he did say that the person driving the wrong way was going fast. Reporting in Canton, Khalil Maycock, Local 4.
Now, coming up on this Friday edition of Local 4 Live, Warren police have a warning about an increase in swatting calls. We'll have that conversation coming up. But first, here's Erica Erickson with a new Local 4 investigation.
Her photos as a minor stolen, then changed to make her appear nude, then shared online.
You violated us.
These guys from Plymouth Canton Educational Park pleading guilty.
Are you worried there's more images of you out there that they haven't found? Of course. I'm terrified. I'm terrified.
Coming up, what she and other women impacted plan to do next.
9:15 here on Local 4 Live, and welcome back to this Friday edition. And it's time for a brand new Local 4 investigation. Now, 3 former Clinton Canton students pled guilty to a wide-ranging scheme to hack women's accounts and post nude photos of them online. One of those women spoke with our investigator, Erica Erickson, and she says that she feels manipulated and used.
You betrayed our trust, made us feel like we are less than human, and you violated us.
Federal agents say these 3 former Plymouth Canton students had been secretly targeting women they once walked the same high school halls with. Daniel Bin, an engineer, Michael Justice, working in digital tech and AI, and Bernard Rice, a psychiatric nurse practitioner, accused of using a Russian website and the anonymous messaging app Discord to trade and post nude photos. Some of those images, the feds say, hacked or digitally altered.
I feel completely manipulated in this situation.
Madison Kinsella says in 2023 she learned private photos and some she'd posted to Instagram when she was a minor in high school had been made to appear nude, then shared. Another alleged victim reached out, then the feds did too.
They actually came to my parents' home in Michigan.
Kinsella, who graduated from the school in 2011, says in that moment, years of strange tech glitches suddenly started making sense.
Like, oh, that's why I had my Apple ID password changing every day for 2 years, because these people were hacking into my phone and doing God knows what.
The feds raiding Bin's home in 2021, seizing electronics, later searching Justice's home, connecting Rice through private messages. Kinsella says a family member had to confirm the nude photos for her.
Humiliation is an understatement, I'd say. It's just a very devastating, violating feeling.
The 3 men pleading guilty to conspiracy to commit fraud and related activity in connection with computers. Bin and Rice sentenced to probation. Bin also time served. Justice awaiting his sentence. Kinsella says she's disappointed, but not surprised.
If we can't rely on the court system to do what needs to be done, then unfortunately, it's on our communities to respond. And I hope that that is what happens.
Kinsella, like others, says she's been in therapy, working to reclaim some sense of safety. But
are you worried there's more images of you out there that they haven't found?
Of course. I'm terrified. I'm terrified.
Now, that was Local 4's Erica Erickson. And since we first brought you this story, Bernard Rice has been removed from the Embark Behavioral Health website. Now, we tried to get more details on his employment, but we have yet to receive a response. Now, coming up, as spring gets set to take the stage today, we'll have several chances to hit 60 degrees over the next few days. Ashley Barrissey is going to have the forecast coming up, and astronauts are also getting ready for a trip back to the moon. We'll take you to Florida to show you how NASA is getting the Artemis II ready for liftoff. That's all ahead when Local 4 Live returns. It's 9:20 here on Local 4 Live, and let's take a live look at Cape Canaveral, where NASA is rolling out the Artemis II rocket as it makes a 4-mile trek to the launch pad ahead of the journey up to outer space. Now, the rollout started just after midnight. They're expected to last 12 hours with 4 astronauts heading to space for a 10-day mission around the moon and back. Now, NASA is targeting April 1st as the launch date, and we'll get over to forewarned meteorologist Ashley Barrissey with a look at our start of spring forecast.
Now, forewarned weather with Exact Track 4D.
Today is the first official day of spring, but we do have 2 seasons going on across the state. Up north, very winter-like from the week that we have had, feet of snow falling up there. We even had a couple below average days here, but all in all, we don't have any snow at our surface, and we won't for a while because we are going to be warming up through the weekend. Let's recap these temperatures through more than half of the month now. We started off on a cool note, had a nice above average stretch, including 2 days where we had record warmth, and that came earlier last week, if you recall. And then we had a bit of a dip throughout the early part of this week, but now we're starting to climb back upward. But it's going to be more of that swing, the teeter-totter that will continue as we do fall tomorrow by at least 10 degrees, but it still should keep us above that average line, given that we're so well above average today, and we rebound back in the 60s Sunday before a bigger drop by almost 20 degrees going into Monday. But at least we're in the point of the season that those cold snaps are not quite as long, and so we will start to climb back up in the 60s by the tail end of your 7-day forecast. But this all does come with some spring shower chances. As far as today, we had a few stray showers early in the day. Afternoon, we don't worry about the rain, and so we will get a few breaks in the clouds with 63 the afternoon high. Now come tonight, mostly cloudy skies. We'll have the wind shifting out of the north, and it's all in the wake of a cold front, which will bring that slightly cooler air that we just talked about. But our temperature set up today, we're in good company because most of the country's above average due to where the ridge of the jet stream is. Now that trough sinking down into Florida will continue to bring below average conditions down there, and that's very much isolated. The rest of us warm. And talk about the southwestern portion of the country, that dome of high pressure, which is starting to skirt a little farther east and will bring that kind of heat to portions of the plains, but will continue to bring record warmth in the southwest for today. Clouds and radar forecast. So cold front will push out of here through the afternoon, replaced by high pressure. And so that keeps us dry into Saturday. And then we have another but stronger cold front arriving come Sunday. So that could trigger a few showers, especially as we head into the afternoon, and maybe an embedded thunderstorm or two before it gets replaced with high pressure once again. High pressure brings stability, calmer conditions. And so we have that on tap Monday, but it comes with a cool down in the wake of that cold front. So let's talk temperatures first. We will be around 50 on Saturday, but back around 60 Sunday. Have that umbrella on hand for the second half of the weekend. So the cooler day Saturday, probably more so the pick day. As we look at your overall 7-day forecast, those low to mid 40s are short-lived. We're on either side of 50 come Tuesday and Wednesday, with another 60-degree day on tap come Thursday with a chance for showers. Also worth pointing out, though, even though we have this nice surge of warmth, we still have some overnights where we fall below the freezing mark. So if you start to get that itch to do any kind of planting or anything crazy like that, we're still well off from having to do that.
It's 9:25 here on Local 4 Live, and Apple is warning iPhone users to be sure you update your software in order to combat new hacking campaigns. Now, the programs are called Dark Sword and Corona, and they can reportedly give hackers deep remote access to a victim's phone. But here's the good news. Apple says that the attacks only work on devices that are running on older software. The latest operating system is iOS 26, and Apple also just released a special update for older iPhone models that can't fully upgrade, specifically to block these hackers. And today, by the way, is also the first day of spring, and you know what that means. It's time to clean up your house. But with so many cleaners on store shelves, it's hard to know what's worth buying. Well, Consumer Reports put those to the test. From paper towels to multi-purpose cleaners and the tried and true hacks, Consumer Reports is helping people get those homes cleaned up for spring. Here's our Rhonda Walker.
When every penny counts, there's nothing more annoying than spending money and time on a cleaning product that doesn't get the job done. That's why Consumer Reports expert product testers make messes in CR labs and sometimes in their own homes to help you find the best products for your money. Let's start with a must-have. Paper towels. As you probably know, there can be a big difference in brands. CR's tests show Bounty Select-A-Size Sheets is tops for its impressive scrubbing strength.
Bounty might be one of the more expensive brands, but the towels absorb so well, you can wring them out and reuse them. So you might actually be saving money in the long run.
Multi-purpose cleaners are the way to go if you're on a tight budget. CR says Mr. Clean's Clean Freak Spray at $5 a bottle is a favorite. It effortlessly cleans most surfaces and features a power nozzle that lets you control the amount of spray. Another winner, Walmart's Great Value Multi-Purpose Cleaner for $3. It tackles most jobs, but shines brightest when cleaning glass. Another $3 deal, Sprayway's Glass Cleaner. It also tackles chrome, tile, and porcelain, on top of cleaning mirrors and other glass where it dries in a flash. If you mean business this spring and you need a new vacuum, a CR best buy is the bagless Shark Navigator NV360, sold at Walmart, Amazon, Target, and Home Depot for under $130. For those tough, greasy kitchen spots, a little baking soda and water can go a long way. Buy a sponge that can handle it.
Scrub Daddy Sponge Daddy requires a little elbow grease, but it was great getting the remnants of a grape juice out of the bottom of the glass.
Finally, perk up your coffee machine for spring. For most models, you can run a mixture of white vinegar and water through the machine, but check your manual. Run a brew cycle halfway, let it sit for about an hour, and then finish the cycle and rinse with 2 to 3 cycles of fresh water.
Now, that was Local 4's Rhonda Walker. And you also don't want to forget to change those air filters. You can simply wipe down most pre-filters, but the main filter needs to be replaced about every 6 to 12 months, or as your manual suggests. Now, coming up, if you have a sweet tooth, here's a question. We're going to let you know pretty much why things like candy and cakes may be getting more expensive. Plus, we're looking at missed paychecks and more call-outs and long lines. It's all part of the growing frustration that travelers and TSA workers are feeling amid this partial government shutdown. We'll check out how Metro Airport is managing as spring break gets underway. Coming up at the bottom of the hour on Local 4 Live.
From downtown Detroit, Local 4 Live starts right now.
And welcome back to another half hour of Local 4 Live on this Friday morning. I'm Jay Scott Smith, and we're going to start this half hour with a live look at Detroit Metro Airport. With a lot of people getting ready to head out for spring break over the next few weeks, the partial government shutdown is keeping TSA agents from getting paid. And that's impacting staffing during this extremely busy time. Now, our Amaya Kuznicki is at Metro Airport, keeping an eye on the canceled flights as well as the lines at security checkpoints.
It is extremely busy in the airport this morning. We're in the McNamara terminal, and just take a look at the TSA line. It's pretty long right now, and you know, this is all happening as TSA workers miss their first full paycheck since funding for the Department of Homeland Security lapsed in mid-February. As those workers feel the strain, staff call-out rates are increasing, and so are security wait times. Security wait times in Houston peaked at 3 hours. Travelers we spoke with today say they're just going with the flow and hoping for the best.
Our flight is at 7, so we figured we'd have enough time if we came in now. And if we miss it, it's the way life goes. And there's not much you can do.
You know, you just want to make sure you stay up to date with your flight app. Make sure all of your flights are on time as scheduled. And again, just get to the airport early. It's the best thing you can do. Back to you guys.
Thank you so much, Amaya. And the Postmaster General plans to visit the Allen Park sorting plant where a worker died late last year. Nicholas Acker was killed after he fell into a machine, and authorities ruled the death an accident. But Representative Rashida Tlaib says that it was preventable. Postmaster General David Steiner told House members that any death inside a facility is one too many, and he says he's willing to visit the plant to look into it, but it's not clear when that visit will be. Time to head out to Wall Street for the start of the trading day. Now, stocks fell yesterday but closed well off of their lows, and traders are keeping an eye on oil prices in Iran, and that's fueling a lot of ups and downs. Now, besides the gas prices, we're seeing another impact from the war in Iran right now. Sugar prices have hit a 5-month high. Now, that's because the rising energy prices may prompt cane mills in top sugar-producing countries like Brazil and India to lower production to offset the rising fuel costs. And in Warren, in swatting calls, and those are calls that target homes and businesses with fake calls of either a violent crime or things such as mass shootings. That's happened a lot in the last couple of weeks, where someone will falsely call 911 claiming a violent crime has been committed. And it usually requires a heavy police presence, and the calls will tend to come from young people who may not realize the consequences. But what many people also don't know is these swatting calls cost police departments thousands of dollars and put people's lives in danger. Now, during the 8 o'clock hour, I spoke with Warren Police Lieutenant John Gajewski, their public safety and as well as our public safety expert Darnell Blackburn, about this disturbing trend. So what has been going on with these swatting calls? What have you guys been seeing?
Yeah, so what we've been seeing is in the past few weeks, we've had an influx of these swatting calls, calls reporting very serious crimes, from active shooters to homicides to shootings, targeting various businesses and residences. And we show up. Of course, we have to take the threats as legitimate, the calls as legitimate, especially in today's times, certainly in light of the Temple Israel. We respond and we find out that there's nothing going on. The calls are completely false.
So when those kind of calls come in, you guys have to fully mobilize, as you noted, because you don't know what you're getting into. Once officers arrive and there's nothing there, what's the procedure? What's the protocol there?
So what we tell residents, obviously, is when we respond and make sure everybody's safe and there's nothing going on, the investigation is only beginning. Every one of these calls is assigned to a detective who diligently follows up on any available leads. We partner with our state and federal partners where we can, because these calls are disruptive. They're disruptive to the residents' peace. They're disruptive to businesses, and they put a huge strain on our resources. They tie up hours of police, fire, dispatch, calls for service, and obviously that's disruptive to the entire community. So anybody who's doing this needs to realize it is disruptive, and more importantly, it's a crime. It's certainly a felony, and we will prosecute you.
Now, when it comes to these calls coming in, is there a way to root out who's making the call? I know people will call in dispatchers. Of course, we have caller ID, all these different things. Is there a way to figure out who is getting these calls off to police, and is there a way to stop it?
There is. Our detectives are pretty good. We have a lot of technological resources and stuff that, weren't in play, certainly a couple of years ago. So certainly we pursue all available leads, and we use different technology platforms to try to isolate who's actually making the call to hold them responsible. Some of these investigations take time. Certain records do take time to get in our hands, but rest assured that we don't just take these calls lightly. We don't just say, oh, well, have a good day. We want to hold people who do this accountable because it is disruptive. It puts lives in danger for both the community and first responders.
Yeah, and that's another point I was going to bring up is that along with just not only the time, the man hours, the different resources that go into answering these calls, this is very dangerous on both ends. And we've seen this happen before where some of these swatting calls in different parts of the country can lead to some really bad outcomes for either the people in the homes or for the officers that are out there responding.
Absolutely, right? That potential exists. Anytime you have officers responding to what we perceive or believe and treat as legitimate to be, certainly a violent crime in progress, that's a volatile situation. That's a volatile environment to put police and citizens in, right? Especially in today's times. Again, it is dangerous. You have tons of public safety resources responding to these calls, driving to these calls, and it just ties up so much of our time. It's certainly preventable, and we need to make it stop.
So if somebody, say, calls in and say if someone knows someone is calling in a swatting call, like they think this is just funny or they're trying to troll somebody that they met online, what can the public do if they find out that someone is out here sending out swatting calls?
Sure. Certainly, obviously, if somebody knows something about a swatting call, one that's taking place or one that has occurred, certainly in the city of Warren, we encourage those people to call our detective bureau to follow up. That information can prove instrumental in an investigation or criminal prosecution. I think the other piece of this that we want to get out there is, we understand it's just disruptive to the citizenry, but if we show up at your house under the belief that there's a swatting call, cooperation goes a long way, right? Our goal is to make sure everybody's safe, to make sure that the emergency being reported isn't going on, and anything we can do to expedite that, right? Getting people to answer the phone when dispatch calls, coming out, following officers' commands. The quicker we get to the truth, the quicker we can get out of your hair, and we can also get our resources back in play for those who might genuinely be in need of emergency services.
That's Lieutenant John Gajewski from the Warren Police Department, their Public Information Officer. John, thank you for joining us this morning on Local 4 Live.
Thank you.
It's kind of interesting. He mentions is keeping people out of our hair. But for more on this, let's bring in our crime and safety expert, Darnell Blackburn. And Darnell, you were definitely agreeing with a lot of what John was saying there. When it comes to things like swatting calls, if you're in your house and all of a sudden the police just show up out of nowhere and you've done nothing wrong, how do you respond?
Let's talk. I'm so glad you brought it up, Jay. So here's the thing that I promote often as a former law enforcement officer. Comply now, complain later. In situations like this, where there's a heavy police presence that's coming to your home, and you haven't done anything, don't get out and start, I didn't do nothing, comply. Because they don't know who you are. I mean, you may not know what's going on, and the reality is that we don't want anybody hurt. A police officer, a citizen, somebody who's walking down the street. So it is so critical and crucial to, if the police come and they give you a command or they tell you to do something, for you to do it. And it could happen with swatting. I mean, we know that I think that there's kind of two victims. There's the police department who kind of is a victim because they're allocating resources. Then you got whomever is the person that's the agency or the address or whatever. And so I can't stress enough, just do what the police say so that everybody will remain safe.
And they can actually figure out what's really going on, because these swatting calls involve people saying there's a domestic violence incident, there's a mass shooting, there's some sort of crime happening and you need to get there right now. And the police show up, you're sitting there watching TV or making dinner or playing a video game, and then all of a sudden here comes a SWAT team or a heavy police presence. And we've seen this turn deadly around the country before. This is not just oh, you got to be careful. Like, no, there are people who've actually lost their lives in swatting incidents.
Yeah, and with this being said, I mean, the reality is that this doesn't just go for a swatting incident. I mean, we're talking about swatting, but just in any situation, just comply so that everybody can remain safe. And that is just such a big deal, especially for something. Nobody wants to be blamed for something they didn't do.
Absolutely.
And in any situation, and so the police showing up and we know you didn't do anything, you're like, I'm innocent, I'm innocent. Police are looking for moves. They're looking for these, these sudden moves. They're looking for these sudden things, and you may not know. So just for viewers watching, just in general, just comply and then be around so you can complain if there's something inappropriate happening from the police doing something to you or from you being a victim of swatting, so that everybody can get to the bottom of it and be safe.
It's a lot of what we heard growing up about when police pull you over. Just do what you can to make sure you get back home. Basically.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I want to thank Darnell and John Gajewski for that. Now we switch over to get a look at your weather as we're rounding out Michigan's Severe Weather Week. And did you know that there are actually 3 different weather phenomena that's considered when you classify a severe thunderstorm? Well, let's get over to the expert on this, our former meteorologist, Ashley Barrissey.
We can start with likely the most obvious, so tornadoes. If there is a cell on radar and it's rotating, then it will be tagged as severe with a tornado warning due to its potential of producing a tornado. Next, a severe thunderstorm warning will be triggered when wind gusts reach or exceed 58 miles per hour, because that's when it's considered to be potentially damaging. I think these 2 elements, for the most part, are pretty self-explanatory. But then there is hail, which can be a bit more complex. So here is a map of $1 billion weather disasters from last year. And notice how the majority stretch from Texas up into the Great Lakes. Now, the larger, more damaging hailstorms tend to be farther south, but the Midwest can be an atmospheric battleground for hail as warm, humid air that travels up from the Gulf clashes with the dry, cooler air coming down from Canada. So here's the science behind it. Strong thunderstorms contain both strong updrafts and downdrafts. Now, raindrops get carried up into the colder parts of the atmosphere and freeze into small hailstones within the cloud. Now, the hail will then move up and down with the super cooled water droplets, and then it becomes a little bit bigger. And the heavier that those become, or the weaker the updraft, well, then they will begin to fall. But not all hail is considered severe. Hail that ranges from pea to nickel size likely won't cause significant damage, but once the hail reaches an inch in diameter, that will trigger severe weather alerts. So the next time you see maybe some small hail in your yard like that behind me, just note that it might not come with a severe thunderstorm warning unless it's paired with damaging winds or tornadoes. It'll need to be quarter size or greater to warrant a warning on its own.
Thank you so much, Ashley. And now coming up, we're going to have more on the growing fallout over ABC's plans to cancel the upcoming season of The Bachelorette just 3 days before it was set to debut. Plus, we're also talking about a new plan to light the way to make Detroiters feel safer in their own neighborhoods. That's ahead when Local 4 Live returns. 9:45 here on Local 4 Live on this Friday morning. And Detroit neighborhoods are going to get brighter this summer as the city plans to install 3,000 lights on residential streets. And the new administration has already set aside $1 million to fund this project. Now, residents as well as Mayor Sheffield say it's a long-awaited fix to make people in the city feel safer.
This is about improving safety, strengthening the quality of life, and making sure that every block in our city gets the attention that it deserves.
Next month, the city and the lighting authority will meet with residents to learn where the lights should go, and the installation is expected to begin in early July. Meanwhile, we go to the continued fallout from ABC's decision to cancel the upcoming season of The Bachelorette. Now, it comes after the star of the show was caught on camera in a very disturbing domestic violence incident. You see it right here. Liz Kreutz has more.
Here's that, yeah? ABC pulling its upcoming highly promoted season of The Bachelorette after this new video emerged, obtained by TMZ, showing the show's star, Taylor Frankie Paul, in a domestic violence dispute with her former partner.
Your daughter is right here.
In the video from 2023, you can see the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives star throwing bar stools at her then boyfriend, Dakota Mortensen, all in front of her 5-year-old daughter, heard crying.
Oh my.
In a statement tonight, ABC and Hulu's parent company, Disney, says we have made the decision to not move forward with the new season of The Bachelorette at this time, and our focus is on supporting the family. A rep for Paul responding, saying in part Taylor is very grateful for ABC's support and that Taylor is finally gaining the strength to face her accuser and taking steps to ensure that she and her children are protected from any further harm. I'm ready to find my person. The video emerged just days ahead of what would have been The Bachelorette's 22nd season, but the network faced growing pressure after earlier this week, Utah police confirmed another ongoing domestic assault investigation involving Paul and Mortensen from last month. On Wednesday, Paul spoke out on GMA.
I'm a person that will always speak my truth, and that's what I'm known for.
Paul, the founder of Mom Talk, has publicly addressed the 2023 domestic violence incident as recently as last year.
The charges were all dropped. I never had hurt my daughter.
Court documents show a judge dismissed several of the charges, including domestic violence in the presence of a child and child abuse, but show Paul did take a plea deal for aggravated assault. Tonight, a rep for her slammed the release of the video, saying it omits context and says Paul is preparing to own and share her story. Liz Kreutz, NBC News.
Now, forewarned weather with Exact Track 4D.
Today is the first official day of spring, but we do have two seasons going on across the state. Up north, very winter-like from the week that we have had, feet of snow falling up there. We even had a couple below average days here, but all in all, we don't have any snow at our surface, and we won't for a while because we are going to be warming up through the weekend. Let's recap these temperatures through more than half of the month now. We started off on a cool note, had a nice above average stretch, including 2 days where we had record warmth, and that came earlier last week, if you recall. And then we had a bit of a dip throughout the early part of this week, but now we're starting to climb back upward. But it's going to be more of that swing, the teeter-totter that will continue as we do fall tomorrow by at least 10 degrees, but it still should keep us above that average line, given that we're so well above average today, and we rebound back in the 60s Sunday before a bigger drop by almost 20 degrees going into Monday. But at least we're in the point of the season that those cold snaps are not quite as long, and so we will start to climb back up in the 60s by the tail end of your 7-day forecast. But this all does come with some spring shower chances. As far as today, we had a few stray showers early in the day. Afternoon, we don't worry about the rain, and so we will get a few breaks in the clouds with 63 the afternoon high. Now come tonight, mostly cloudy skies. We'll have the wind shifting out of the north, and it's all in the wake of a cold front, which will bring that slightly cooler air that we just talked about. But our temperature setup today, we're in good company because most of the country's above average due to where the ridge of the jet stream is. Now that trough sinking down into Florida will continue to bring below average conditions down there, and that's very much isolated. The rest of us warm. And talk about the southwestern portion of the country, that dome of high pressure, which is starting to skirt a little farther east and will bring that kind of heat to portions of the plains, but will continue to bring record warmth in the southwest for today. Clouds and radar forecast, so cold front will push out of here through the afternoon, replaced by high pressure, and so that keeps us dry into Saturday. And then we have another but stronger cold front arriving come Sunday. So that could trigger a few showers, especially as we head into the afternoon, and maybe an embedded thunderstorm or two before it gets replaced with high pressure once again. High pressure brings stability, calmer conditions, and so we have that on tap Monday. but it comes with a cool down in the wake of that cold front. So let's talk temperatures first. We will be around 50 on Saturday, but back around 60 Sunday. Have that umbrella on hand for the second half of the weekend. So the cooler day Saturday, probably more so the pick day. As we look at your overall 7-day forecast, those low to mid 40s are short-lived. We're on either side of 50 come Tuesday and Wednesday, with another 60-degree day on tap come Thursday with the chance for showers. Also worth pointing out, though, even though we have this nice surge of warmth, we still have some overnights where we fall below the freezing mark. So if you start to get that itch to do any kind of planting or anything crazy like that, we're still well off from having to do that.
Thank you so much, Ashley. Now, coming up on Local 4 Live, March Madness rolls on as the Spartans and Wolverines both advanced in the NCAA tournament on Thursday. We'll hear from the teams and get a look ahead to tomorrow's second-round games right out there in Buffalo when Local 4 Live returns. And welcome back to Local 4 Live, and you are looking live at Buffalo, New York, and that's where the Michigan State Spartans and the Michigan Wolverines are going to be for just a little bit longer after both teams won their first-round games in this year's NCAA basketball tournament. Now, Michigan is going to be marching on, having taken out Howard University. Michigan moving on after mowing down Howard 101-80. Now, this game was actually closer than the score indicates. Howard made 10 three-pointers in the first half, only trailed by 4 at halftime. But in the second half, however, Morez Johnson took over and helped break the game open, scoring 17 of his 21 points in the second half. Michigan pulls away for the easy win.
We're going to, enjoy this for a little bit. Then tomorrow we're going to have to, set a real high standard for us and know that every game isn't going to be like this, so we got to bring our A game.
We've been a part of these type of environments and games before. The Big Ten gives you those environments almost every single night. So being poised in the moment, not letting the moment get bigger than ourselves and bigger than the team, and staying connected throughout it all.
Now, the Wolverines will advance to round 2 to play the 9th seed St. Louis tomorrow afternoon at 12:10. St. Louis, by the way, hammered Georgia 102-77 to advance to the round of 32. Meanwhile, in the early game, the Michigan State Spartans started their 28th consecutive tournament run against North Dakota State. And this one, the Spartans dominated nearly wire to wire in a 92-67 win. Carson Cooper tied his season high, scoring 20 points, and MSU made 59% of their shots from the field, their second best shooting game of the entire season. They led by 20 at the half and beat the other Bison by 25.
Everybody had their moments, like Coop having his moment, Fears, like everybody, Cam. It was just an incredible team effort today.
We out-rebounded by 12, I think, and, Coach pulled a lot of stats in the last 5 games. We've been out-rebounding guys by like 5 in the last 5. So for us to kind of get back to that and guard a lot better than we have recently, that's a statement.
Now, next up for the Spartans in the second round is 6th-seeded Louisville. Tip-off is set for tomorrow at 2:45 p.m. And the Cardinals, by the way, beat South Florida 83-79 to advance on Thursday afternoon. Now, we have so much more coming up here today on Local 4 and Local 4 Plus, and that includes Live in the D at 11 o'clock, and Tati and Kim are here with a preview of today's show. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Happy Friday.
It's certainly a happy Friday when I see you two.
Aww.
I'm so excited for today's show. Obviously,
too.
we're big foodies. So we are having a brand new restaurant on for Dine in the D. It just opened. Do you like sushi?
Oh, I love sushi.
Okay.
I love sushi.
This place called Sunda. It opened right near all the stadiums. They have this dish, and it's like a roulette sushi dish. So you spin it, everybody at the table picks one up, eats it. One of the
sushi rolls, pieces, yeah,
has a ghost pepper in it.
Oh no.
Here's the deal though. If you get the ghost pepper one, they give you free milk.
Oh, well, that helps. as the nuclear bomb goes off in my chest.
Can you imagine? I think it's a fun thing to do with friends, and April has Sunda on as her Dine in the D today, so we will talk all about that. And of course, it's Friday, so you know what I'm already thinking about. What I'm going to stream this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
So Greg Russell will be here and have his whole rundown.
That's right.
Hopefully there's a movie that I can go to the movies for.
That would be great. Also, speaking of Friday, Fish Fry Fridays for those who are observing Lent. We are having a grocery store on. They have great fish options ready to go. We're going to have a chef on that's going to help us with these fish recipes that you can cook at home, because fish can be a little intimidating sometimes.
It can be. Sometimes it comes out really good when I cook it, and other times, like Tuesday night, not so not very good.
That will be coming up on Live in the D at 11 o'clock. Thank you for joining us this morning. And, of course, as always, you can keep up with all the news, sports, and weather updates on Local 4, Local 4 Plus, and the ClickOnDetroit.com app. Have a great Friday, everybody.